Hello. Testing 1, 2, 3. William, it's 10. Hi, Kim.
Yeah.
Good. Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
My audio is on.
Now I can hear you. Okay. Um,
You see, I sent you some comments back on the potential discussion. Emailed it this morning.
no. Did you?
Emailed it about 15 minutes ago.
It just came through. Okay. Give me 1 second. Thank you. I appreciate your notes. I just want to. Okay. So do you want to cover everything we've listed here?
I just don't, I don't know how much time we have and how things will go. So I wanted to,
We try to keep it to about 20 to 25 minutes.
okay.
So I see here that, the recap for the BLAs under review, there are 7. So I don't know that we need to or should maybe, cover all of those.
Yeah,
Unless
I wasn't going to go into like a long
like detail.
detail about them. No, I
Yeah.
wasn't planning
Okay.
to do
Okay. All right. And then the guidance documents,
that. Again, I would just
okay,
say the other ones, like what topics. I'm not, for the additional guidances, the only one I would, get into is the platform a little bit. And then the other guidances, just say what topics they are.
sure.
There's 2 of them.
Yep. 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 That's fine.
The town
Okay.
hall might be of interest, so we could probably
Yeah.
note that quickly.
Okay. I'm going to move this. In an unexpected turn of events, my work laptop is not recording audio properly. So I'm using another laptop to record, but this is on I received the email on my work laptop. So I'm it's all
Juggling.
over the yeah, all over the place. That's okay. We will make it work. Okay, so I'm going to do a very brief introduction, and then we'll jump right into the questions that here. Just I'll prompt you, and you just provide the information as you've prepared it. We'll go
Okay.
right through the question set. I don't tend to really ask any follow-up questions to kind of keep it to that 25-minute length if we can.
Okay. All right.
And then I'll do a very brief conclusion, and you can be on your way.
Okay, that's good.
And I just want to make sure I have it correct. Kimberly Benton, Ph.D. I have you as Dark Horse Consulting's Master Principal, Head of Regulatory.
Yep.
Okay.
And you can call me Kim too. That's fine.
Okay. I introduce you as Kimberly, but I do know through our correspondence you've listed, you've written yourself as Kim, so that's how I'll refer to you.
All right, great.
Okay. Great. We can get started.
Full disclosure, I haven't done a podcast before, so.
Don't worry, and we try to keep it conversational, but feel free if you, say, hey, time out, I want to go back and re-record that, we can do that. That's the beauty. It's not live, so we can go back and make any edits that we need to.
All right, sounds good.
Okay. Hello there. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Cell and Gene, the podcast. I'm your host, Erin Harris. My guest is Dark Horse Consulting's Master Principal Head of Regulatory, Kimberly Benton, Ph.D. Kim, I'm so glad you're able to join me to sit down and chat. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me, Erin.
So one of the things I love to receive in my inbox is Dark Horse Consulting's regulatory roundup, and I typically review it, front to back. But talk to us a little bit to our listeners a little bit about first of all, what DHC is, your role there, and the regulatory roundup, where they can find it, what they can find in it. Just give us a little bit of a brief overview of what that is.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm glad to hear that you read the quarter horse when you receive it. That's great. So yes, I joined Dark Horse about 18 months ago. And I am head of the regulatory group. There are 5 former regulators from CBER in the group. And so one of our roles here to complement the, stable of expertise that we have at Dark Horse is to bring the FDA experience, how regulators think, how we would review things, and therefore how to approach regulators with both submissions and in meetings and other things. And so again, of course, since we were, former at FDA, we keep our finger on the pulse of what's still going on in our former office. So that led to the idea of adding the regulatory roundup to the quarter horse and our website. things of interest, such as, what BLAs are under review, what has been approved, what guidances specific to cell and gene therapy or things that are applicable to cell and gene therapy. Other types of outreach our former office is doing, such as town halls and workshops and other things. So basically where our clients and staff in Dark Horse actually can get information on the current, things going on, current news in cell and gene therapy. So that's the idea behind it. You asked where people can find it. Well, like yourself, you can subscribe to our quarterly newsletter. If you go to Dark Horse's website, scroll down toward the bottom, there's a link where you can subscribe to the newsletter. That means you'd get the email quarterly. There's also a direct link to various information, including the Reg Roundup on our website. So it's under, I think, the drop-down menu under Our Advantage. So you can scroll down and get that information. So the idea so far has been to update this quarterly, but we may turn it into a more, as we develop it, we may turn it into a more frequently updated source of information.
Good. Okay, well, listeners, I urge you to go and subscribe to it. It's a wealth of information, so please do take Kim's instructions and go register for it for yourself. So I'm glad you mentioned BLAs or biologic license applications. And we have a whole host of things to get through, but I want to start there. So talk to us a little bit about the recent approvals and kind of complete responses for novel products or rare diseases. The product approvals, additional indications for existing products, response letters, what have you. Can you bring us up to speed on where we're at?
Sure. So I think let's just look at 2024, since we've gotten through half of the year now. So there've been 3 original product approvals so far in 2024. The first was Iovance's Amtagvi. Sorry, might trip up on some names of the products. So that received accelerated approval in February, and so that is the first cell therapy product for metastatic melanoma. So that was that product's claim to fame as being the first. So that's and for a solid tumor. Another approved product was Orchard Therapeutics Lenmeldy, and that was approved in March. And that's indicated for treatment of children with metachromatic leukodystrophy, or MLD. So that's a rare disease product. And then in April, Pfizer received approval for Becvez, which is for adults with mild to moderate hemophilia B. So these were all, novel products and in rare disease spaces. There were 3 additional indications approvals added to existing products. In January, Vertex's Casgevy, the first gene editing product, had a second indication added for transfusion-dependent beta thalassemia. A notable supplement to Juno BMS's Breyanzi was accelerated approval for, so of course that's a CD20 CAR. I'm sorry, BCMA CAR. This is for relapsed refractory chronic lymphocytic leukemia and small cell lymphocytic leukemia in patients who had received 2 prior lines of therapy. So that was an important update to that product. And also Sarepta received accelerated approval for a new indication for a non-ambulatory patients. And also the previous accelerated approval was converted to full approval for ambulatory patients, and that was in June. And the other 2 actions so far this year on BLAs have been 2 complete response letters issued to Abeona and Rocket Pharmaceuticals.
Good. Okay, thank you. Now we know that as you're talking about the complete responses in 2024, for what the applicants disclosed was CMC reasons. Can you talk to us a little bit about that from your perspective, what that means?
Yeah, thanks for asking that, because I think that's a really important point. So Abeona really gave a lot of information about in their press release about their complete response letter, about the CMC requests that were included in the letter, that they pertain to validation requirements for certain manufacturing and release tests. Others were observations that FDA had cited in their pre-license inspection report. And they had noted that there were no clinical efficacy or safety comments in the complete response letter. So sounds like the reason for the CRL, the non-approval of the BLA, they were all CMC reasons. And same thing for Rocket. They did not provide as much information. That was their so Abiona's product was for recessive dystrophic epidermolysis bullosa. Rocket's product was for another rare disease that was for leukocyte adhesion deficiency. So these are both rare diseases. So they also stated, so Rocket stated that their reasons for their complete response were all chemistry, manufacturing controls related to. They didn't give as much detail. But so, it's really important to know that for these rare diseases, that CMC reasons are what is holding up approval. CMC has been a challenge, for cell and gene therapy since the beginning, and it is still true. So even, for rare diseases, there's, FDA still can find that, there are ways that they can't reach the status of, the requirements for approval. So CMC is important to consider for development.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talk to us a little bit about, so we've talked about the recent approvals, complete responses. Talk to us a little bit about or a recap, if you will, of the 7 BLAs under review now as of, okay, well, let's call it August 2024.
Okay, so I guess it depends whether what exactly when this airs and when people listen, if it'll still be 7, because 2 are coming due in the next week. So yes, and it's 7 by my count from public information. I apologize if I've missed anybody, anyone. So the first 2 coming up, actually due date this week, is Adaptimmune for their product that is shortened named Afami-cel. And so if approved, this will be the first TCR, so T cell receptor therapy that targets MAGE-A4. So it's an autologous product, and it targets a synovial sarcoma is the first indication, which is a solid tumor. So that would be a novel modality of a product, a TCR, and a first for solid tumor. So that is due on Friday. So stay tuned for that. So August 4th. Humacyte is due August 10th. That's another novel product. That's a human acellular vessel, and that's a construct, and that is for vascular trauma. So we'll both be, interested in the news on those too.
For sure, for sure.
Then we have a few months before we have any other due dates. The next are coming up are in November. So Autolus product that the shortened name is Obe-cel. So that's an autologous CD19 CAR therapy. How that differs from the approved CD19 CARs, that has it's designed to have a fast binding off rate opposed to minimize excessive activation of CAR T cells. So that is also for relapsed refractory B cell ALL. So it's not a novel indication for a CAR, but they're saying that they have a difference from the approved CD19 CARs. Also in November, PTC Therapeutics, Aladocogene exaparvovec. That's an AAV that delivers dopa decarboxylase gene. This product is approved in the EU, but it's now it's coming to the FDA. So this is for AADC deficiency, rare disease. So that's due about, by my calculation, November 13th. In December, there's Neurotech, product called revakinagene teradacel. This is a cell therapy, encapsulated cell therapy, expressing expressing CNTF. And so this is for macular telangiectasia. Here we go again. Macular telangiectasia. Sorry. Do we want to re-record that part?
Sure, you could, if you want to just stop and re-record that whole sentence, we could just pick it up from here.
Just the sentence of what it's for. Let me make sure I can pronounce it.
This happens to me all the time, so don't worry.
Telangiectasia. Okay, I think that's it now. So just the sentence.
Yep.
Where should I start? Should I start with the whole product, or
Yeah, probably that whole section, and then we'll edit it back. We'll edit it.
just with
We'll cut.
neurotech, not
Yeah,
the BLAs? Okay.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Neurotech's BLA for revokinogene teratocel. This product is a encapsulated cell product, allogeneic cell RPE cells, genetically engineered to express CNTF. And the indication is macular telangiectasia type 2. So that is due in December 17th. Then there are two that are due in early January, mesoblasts, remestemcel L, allogeneic MSC product. That is a resubmission that has been previously reviewed before and received a CR letter. This is the indication is for children with steroid refractory acute GVHD. In their press release, it sounds like they have had additional discussions with FDA and they were encouraged to resubmit the BLA again. And then Atara, tab cell product for which is allogeneic EBV specific CTLs, also approved under conditional approval in Europe, now been accepted for review, and it is due January 15th. And this is for adult and pediatric patients with EBV positive post-transplant lymphoproliferative disease. So all of these are novel products or novel indication, or they have an aspect of novelty. So it's going to be another year of new indications or new types of products for cell and gene therapy. So we could not counting on the two that are due in early January that FDA would take action early. But if all the others are approved, I believe that would be a total of potential of 8 approvals in 2024. And
Yeah.
maybe one or two of the early January due dates might be wrapped up early.
Yeah, for sure. But that's so exciting, and we'll be certainly monitoring them as we go. But thank you for the detailed recap of all the BLAs that are under review. I want to talk a little bit about guidance documents. Certainly an area that we're all concerned about, care about, and you and your team at DHC do a great job of rounding them up, if you will, in your reg roundup. So first, let's talk about the platform designation guidance, and we can kind of go from there. So on May 29th, 2024, the FDA released its draft program, or excuse me, let me start over. See, it happens to me too. Okay, so first I want to talk about the platform designation guidance, which back on May 29th, 2024, the FDA released the draft. It's called Platform Technology Designation Program for Drug Development Guidance for Industry. Now, the draft guidance describes the process for requesting and receiving a platform technology designation, which would provide an expedited pathway for the development of drugs or biologics that utilize a platform technology to standardize the development, manufacture, or processing of the finished product. So there's kind of a few parts to this. First, if you could talk us through from your perspective, the benefits, the pros, the cons of the guidance, as maybe the limitations of the designation, to licensed products. And then we can kind of go on from there to talk about, what the reg roundup also includes, maybe more broadly.
Okay, I think the first thing we can point is like the too long didn't read message for the guidance for anyone who hasn't read it, is that the designation as a platform technology designation is limited to technologies that have already been used in a licensed or approved drug or biologic. Or entities that either entities that own the data or have legal right to cross-reference it can apply for the designation for a specific technology. So in my estimation, that limits it to about a dozen or just over a dozen independent companies that have an approved cell or gene therapy product technology. And so this limitation to licensed or approved products comes from the statute. So FDA really didn't have much wiggle room in broadening that. So that already reduces who is eligible for this designation. The benefits of it are that those that are eligible can leverage data from their approved application to, to their next product, to to not have to resubmit certain information. FDA need to re-review the information. So all of that should speed speed the review and regulatory process. Also, not needing to regenerate data that's applicable to other products, but technically that's not really a new thing. But so I think it's also important. I think the listeners will be interested to know that this doesn't limit the concept of platforms that has really been out there in the cell and gene therapy field, especially about how to leverage data from one product to another, either in your own, in a company or developer's own product knowledge from one product to their next, or perhaps across different products across the field. The concept of platform is still out there and it's more broad. It's just this guidance is talking about the specific designation. So, and it's also, I think, important to note that FDA put out in their list of draft guidances that they plan for the rest of the year. One called Use of Platform Technologies in Gene Therapy Products, Incorporating Gene Editing. So gene editing has really been the space that there's been a lot of discussion about how data can be leveraged and platforms can be leveraged. And I think the concept for genome editing and potentially across AAVs also been talked about platforms. So, what the field has wanted to know that they can leverage data and FDA would be open to existing knowledge is still out there. It's just not, going to have the official stamp of being called a platform, a designated platform technology.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for that detailed explanation. That helps. Now, maybe can we talk a little bit about some more broadly applicable guidances of interest to cell and gene therapy? Like we said, one of which is the platform, perhaps even some other cell and gene therapy guidances that CBER has planned for 2024. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah, I think maybe just first highlight the fact that there, were two final guidances published so far in 2022, one on CAR T, one on gene editing. There are two that just the comment period is just closing or just closed yesterday as we record this. One is on safety testing for allogeneic cells used in cell-based product. One is for consideration for human and animal-derived material. So there's a lot of interest on those. So we'll see if FDA is going to be able to finalize this year or not, based on the docket comments. There are also several other guidances planned, and that's exciting. One is on frequently asked questions, cell and gene therapy products, and one is accelerated approval for human gene therapy products for rare diseases. So I'm sure there will be a lot of interest when these publish. And one thing we do when we include these in the reg roundup is make sure we also highlight the comment period and provide a link to the public docket, so that those that are interested, both individuals and companies or organizations can, societies can comment on these guidances and point out, hey, FDA, you didn't include this, or we don't, we think this should be revised when they move to the final guidance. And so the frequently asked questions guidance, I'm wondering, so that kind of leads to another topic that we like to touch on in the guidances, or what workshops and town halls and things. So I'm wondering if the frequently asked questions guidance will bring some learnings that come from the town halls that FDA that the OTP has done over the last several years, both questions they prepared based on questions they know they get frequently, and those that have come up in the live portion of those town halls.
Sure, and we know that there was one in June, and I believe there's one planned for September. Is that right?
Yes, so the one in June was a CMC readiness for gene therapy BLAs. So the recording of that is available. I listened to that, and that was really interesting. A lot of things pointed out of, just like it said, what are common problems that have been seen in gene therapy BLAs. So it could be both things that have led to a lot of information requests and needing to scramble to get additional information in your BLA clock. It could also be things that potentially have led to CR letters for products. So it's good learning for those that are in late stage development and even earlier stage to know that they think it was common things such as assay validation robustness and the types of information that is not routinely submitted in BLAs that FDA has had to ask for. And then the one coming up in September, the date that I have for that is September 5th. That's cell therapy CMC readiness for late stage BLAs. So I imagine it's sort of the same type of, thing, problems that FDA, common problems that FDA has seen that have, led to potential, delay in FDA agreeing that someone is ready for a pivotal trial.
Right. We'll be very eager to see the outcomes of that particular town hall. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you?
No.
Okay.
I agree. I was agreeing.
Good. Okay, thank you. And there are plenty of, talking about town halls and meetings and of course the draft guidances, but there are also, of course, the FDA public workshop on best practices for meeting management, which is just one of that type of workshop. I personally didn't get to attend, and I was wondering if you did, and if you didn't, I think it's important that people do go and look for that recording to find their takeaways from it.
Yes, unfortunately, I was able to tune in just for a few minutes, and I didn't see the whole thing because I think it was about 4 hours long in sections. But my understanding it's recorded, so listeners can Google for that and listen to the parts that they want to hear. But something I did see in another article recapping this is and I'm not surprised to hear this, is that people commented that FDA should do a better job of providing reasons when a meeting is denied or a meeting is converted. We know that the trend toward written response only, that it definitely occurred in the pandemic times and before, when the FDA's meeting workload got so high that was not popular with stakeholders. They didn't like the written response only instead of having the opportunity to talk to FDA. So I'm sure there were a lot of comments related to that to encourage FDA to have more teleconference, video conference meetings instead of response only.
Sure, that makes perfect sense, and I could see sort of the concern behind that and the need for more of them. So I find that in my role that people are cell and gene readers, cell and gene podcast listeners, what have you. They're always really clamoring for the advice from regulatory experts like yourself. And so as we kind of are going to the back half of 2024 here and into 2025, if you could maybe provide for our listeners a little bit of a regulatory outlook for the cell and gene therapy developers, what is your perhaps broad overarching advice to them? What could they expect? What can and should they prepare for? For the true cell and gene therapy developers out there, what can the near-term future here look like for them from a regulatory standpoint?
Okay, so maybe let's break this down into sort of outlook, what I see first. So what I see, through 2024, we've talked about, the number of products that are in the queue now, the BLA products. So, as we mentioned, we could have up to 8 new approvals this year. Maybe a little more if those two, those two they're due in January get done early. So that's a good pace. We're still not on the pace of that FDA would like to see, 10 plus, 20 plus approvals a year, but it's steady with recent years. Still seeing like increasing outreach done by CBER and OTP, the number of guidances, town halls, workshops, other speaking engagements. That's very encouraging to know that, they're still trying to keep interaction and getting information out to stakeholders that are developing products. Of course, across the field, there's, newer product modalities that are both product developers and FDA are still, working out the kinks about. There's obviously an uptick in interest in like in vivo CAR T, novel gene editors, non-viral gene delivery. So maybe we will see some focused workshops or guidances or something as FDA gets more experience with those types of products. So obviously, we're still, cell and gene therapy field is still innovating. So that's great to see. Um, Switching to advice, I think really we can go back and recap to the fact that there were 2 complete responses this year that focused on CMC. So, a catchphrase can be, it's the CMC stupid, not to be insulting, to those that received, these complete responses, but just, as a lesson brought more broadly for the field, that, it's still a challenge for CMC development and cell and gene therapy to keep pace with the rapid clinical development, particularly in rare disease. And it's still important. So, companies still need to try to make the case to, put the resources in, develop their CMC, and to have those discussions with FDA during development, like how are they going to get to, BLA readiness? So that's still very important. And, that's something we specialize in at Dark Horse too. Also, advice, don't overlook the resources the FDA is making available. The town halls, the workshops, tune into those, or read articles about it if you can't tune into those, and take advantage of the learning and information that's out there. And those that are have the time and interest can get involved in stakeholder organizations, liaison meetings, commenting on documents and things like that to give FDA the input they need, so that FDA gets the input from across the field. Other things to keep an eye out on. There's announcement of the rare disease hub rollout. So what is that going to, how is that going to materialize and impact cell and gene therapy? I think there's, there's obviously a lot of interest in rare disease on both sides. FDA is interested, meeting these unmet medical needs. That's always been cell and gene therapies, of area of bringing products to, that there's no other possible therapeutic modality. But there's, still uncertainty of what is the threshold for approval, both clinically and CMC wise. So, both in accelerated and in traditional approval. So that's still something that's it's being worked out. And it'll be interesting to see as we get more data points on that. So I think it's overall still exciting times for cell and gene therapy. We're making progress, but it's still, it's still a growing and somewhat new field.
Sure. And thank you very much for that outlook and advice. We find that our listeners really gravitate to that information. So definitely the CMC, definitely the knowledge is power, and immerse yourself into any of the information that the FDA is offering. Provide your feedback. So all really good information. Appreciate your time and insight with us today. And listeners, that wraps up this episode of Cell and Gene, the podcast, featuring Dark Horse Consulting's Kim Benton, PhD. Kim, thank you so much for your time today. This was fantastic.
Thanks, Erin. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Good. Thank you. And thanks to you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Okay. Thank you.
Anything you think we could have covered better or need to redo?
Nope, not from my perspective. Is there anything? I'm glad we went back and re-recorded the names of the drugs.
Yeah, hopefully I didn't insult anybody.
No, I do it all the time. As a matter of fact, I did one last week with Cure Duchenne on Sarepta's therapy, and I had to Google it several times to make sure that the pronunciation of it, if it was pronounced correctly across all of them, so that I was pronouncing it correctly. So I do it all the time. I just want to make sure that we covered everything you wanted to cover.
I think so.
I feel a little bit badly. I didn't get to review your notes, as you know, until we kind of
it's my schedule lately has been horrible.
Oh, I completely understand, but therefore I want to make sure that we covered everything that's important to you and your team to get out.
Yeah, I think so. I was just recapping the types of things we have in there. I wasn't, trying to do a big sales pitch for the company or anything. I know that wasn't the role.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
just, being able to do it. So I think
Okay.
so.
All right, good. So, our next episode airs on August 1st. We're every other Thursday.
Mhm.
So you'll be 2 weeks after that.
Okay.
Um, and then, because I try to keep them as, you know,
Okay. So it was
com-
okay that I wasn't sure about the date that this would air, and I said I didn't know,
oh,
when.
for sure. That's actually the better way to do it.
Okay.
Um, so so that's fine. You will hear from my colleague Janelle Scamp with the final link, and with the audio link, some teed up, um, promotional verbiage that you can use.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Feel free to use it, not use it, change it to whatever works for you. We just try to make it
Okay.
easy on you. And if you could promote it socially, that would be great. It just
We'll do
does even better when the company and the company and the guest and the guest's company promote it too.
Yeah, I'll do that and I'll make sure that, our PR's type person knows that, Kelly. I'll make sure she's looped in.
Perfect, perfect. Well, again, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I know how busy you are, as all my guests are, so it's not lost on me that you've given up your time to educate our audience, so I appreciate it.
Okay.
While I have you, there's 100% certainty, with 100% certainty, I will be doing so we do Cell and Gene live events, which are their webinars. Um, and I will likely be doing the regulatory outlook one in like January or February. And the dates yet are not um solidified, but they're typically it'll be after bio in January. Um Probably early to mid January. I do them like Tuesdays between 11 and 12 Eastern. And if you're interested in being the expert panelist on for regulatory outlook for 2025, I'd love to have you. If you want to, I can give you more information. You can consider it. You don't have to answer me now. But that's coming up, and I think our one last year did really, really well, and people just gravitate to this. So I'm going to include it again for 2025 early in the year. And, given your expertise, I think you'd be a great panelist.
Okay, yeah, that sounds interesting. Please send me more information about it. So,
Sure, sure, absolutely. But in the meantime, thank you for your time. And, and we will, I'll send you this as soon as it's ready.
okay, sounds great. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, bye.
Bye. All right, listeners, that wraps up this episode of Cell and Gene, the podcast featuring Dark Horse Consulting's Kim Benton, Ph.D. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Hello there. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Cell and Gene, the podcast. I'm your host, Erin Harris. My guest for today's episode is Dark Horse Consulting's Master Principal Head of Regulatory, Kimberly Benton, Ph.D. Kim, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me, and super glad that you're here.